I have a network here that does not have a domain controller. This is a small home network. It's all on one IP network. And it has 3 computers but no servers. So because it has no servers, it can't have a domain controller. And there is a named network system for small networks like this that do not have servers, and we call it a workgroup. Now, a workgroup is simply a named network without a domain, and it has somewhat less functionality than a domain because it doesn't have a domain controller that can serve up resources and control these computers. So in this case, nobody's in control here as it would be on a domain. Let's actually go and see how we would set that up, where we would set it up. I'm on a Windows 11 machine right now, and so I'm going to go ahead and click Start here, and then I will go up to Settings, and from Settings I'm just going to stay on this System section of Settings, and we are going to go all the way down to the bottom where it says About. Now click About. Now I'm going to scroll back down to the bottom again here. Actually, I don't want to go to the bottom. Up here, partway down, is a link for domain or work group. So I'll click that, and I'll come to this little pop-up window here. If I click Change, you'll see that I have the option of either being on a domain or being on a work group. Now, with a domain, I would need a domain controller in order to connect to that domain. But in the case of a work group, all I need is to have the same work group name across all the devices on this network. And by default, the name of that is workgroup. Now, I could change it to something else. If I wanted to call my home network here Fred, I could certainly do that as long as I changed that workgroup name on all of the computers. So as long as they all agree, it is on a network, and it is a workgroup actually rather than a domain. Now, some of the differences that you will find between them will be that with a domain, you can log on to the domain. You don't log on to an individual computer. You have one username and password for the entire domain, and you can log on to that domain from any computer. And you can share resources across that entire domain quite easily just by saying, I want such and such user to have access to this folder, for example. However, with a workgroup, it doesn't quite work that way. There is no central logon. I still have to have a logon for each individual computer. And then from that computer, I have to say whether or not I want to share something. And then if I'm on another computer or somebody's on another computer and they want to see that, they need to know the access credentials to the computer from which they're getting that. So there is a somewhat limited capability in sharing, but file and printer sharing is a lot easier if I set up a work group than if I didn't have a work group. Now, every PC, every Windows PC, is either on a work group or a domain. There's no middle ground. There's no not on anything. It's either on a work group or a domain. And by default, they're all on a work group called workgroup, and they can see other devices within that same workgroup as long as the capabilities are turned on in that computer to do so.